in the RWJ Fitness and Wellness Center in Hamilton, New Jersey. Born and raised in Jamaica, Janet's fascination with food began at an early age as she observed and later began helping her mother in the kitchen at the family restaurant. Sorry. Look, yesterday, the chancellor and president kept their mask on, so I'm gonna follow them and keep my mask on too. So I'm like, I have to keep doing this. All right, so after graduating from SUNY New Paltz with a BA in communications, Janet went to work for Bloomberg LP. She spent 12 years in human resources and broadcasting, during which time she earned an MA in communications from Temple University. So Janet and I actually have known each other for over a year because Janet's son, Robert, participated in the Ruse competition. And so Janet kept emailing me a lot about Robert's excitement to join Rutgers School of Business Camden. And he was just ecstatic when he got admission to us. So we're so happy that he was admitted to us. And Janet, please come on up so we can start this conversation. And as you can see, I am promoting Jade Grilling Cafe. I had the distinct pleasure and honor to visit maybe 2 weeks ago now to get some lunch, my son and I. And even though I'm on a diet, it was really, really delicious. I had like jerk chicken salad and rum cake, and that was just amazing. So I have some questions here, but I'm also like making sure people can see this menu. And so I'm gonna start the conversation, but I'm gonna also open it up for many of you in the audience to have questions as well, okay? All right, so prior to establishing Jade Jamaican Grill, you had a wonderful career in corporate America. Can you share a little bit more about your background and your interest and what led you to become a caterer?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, Oscar. And let me just first start by saying, can you hear me clearly? Do I need to move in a little bit? Can you hear me now? Good. Let me just first start by saying thank you to Rutgers University, the School of Business, Dean Adya, all the partners and teams and groups and departments that made this event possible. I think there's so much going on in our world right now, but there are a lot of opportunities. And so having these conversations are helpful for students. So I'm happy to participate. Thank you so much. To answer your question, Oscar, yes, I was with Bloomberg for 12 years. As he mentioned, my background is in communications and media management. And so I went to school for that. So I at least wanted to give that a try. So I transferred from our Princeton office, which I was for about 3.5 years in HR. And then I transferred to our New York office, which is the only office that had television at that time. But I wasn't in front of the camera. I was behind the scenes. I worked in technical, did editing, archiving, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think it's around the time I had Robert that I guess I got the itch that I wanted to do my own thing. And once I did all the research, it said, do that thing that you are completely passionate about, that thing that you can do with your eyes closed. And for me, that was cooking. So I spent a number of years in corporate, and I gained a lot of insight and wisdom that I was able to transfer over into my entrepreneurship journey.
So let's spend some time right there. Can you talk about some of those critical skills that you learned in corporate America that you were able to transfer over to become an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. I think one of the main things being in a corporate environment is professionalism. In my mind, so many things have been dumbed down in society. And I think professionalism and showing up the right way, because it does matter and people do pay attention. So professionalism in the way you carry yourself, your speech, your demeanor, your attitude goes a long way. It leads to promotion. Many times you can be great at the job, but if certain things aren't where it needs to be, you can cost yourself promotion. So professionalism and translating that to my entrepreneurship journey is I'm meeting different clients. Not every client is running in and they want a $5 plate of jerk chicken. Sometimes you're doing a corporate event, a corporate catering event, a huge gala, or something along that line, and knowing how to interact with a certain level of clientele is important. It means something. So there's professionalism. I think there is also being able to work in a team.
Mhm.
You may start out as a one-man band on your entrepreneurship journey, but if you're looking to grow your company, you're going to add some people on, right? And being able to have a vision, hold a vision, but still incorporate other input in a team setting goes a long way. Not just your immediate team, but if you're working for a client, you have to be able to do that, take their opinions and guidelines into consideration, and being able to get to service that client and accomplish the task at hand. So team, working in a group setting and teams are important as well. Certainly presentation, not just yourself, that goes back to professionalism, presentation of yourself, your brand, how to present your brand as you're building and potentially growing it, presenting your service and your product. People generally want to do business with people they trust. Certain things matter. And so you really have to pay attention to that. Certainly things like sales, you're not going to be a jack of all trades, but knowing certain things that adds to your bottom line, sales, customer service, HR came in handy for me as well. As a generalist, I had my hand in college recruiting.
Mhm.
I did employee relations, I did labor relations. I assisted numerous teams underneath that HR umbrella, all of which added into my hiring for my company, hiring staff, corporate staff, corporate board, et cetera.
Excellent, excellent. So what I hear, you were really well prepared to become an entrepreneur from your career in corporate America. However, despite that preparation you had, what I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs is they still feel like they lack a lot of things, like they lack a lot of skills.
Oh, absolutely.
So what would be some of the things that you feel like, despite your great preparation, that you still were not ready for as an entrepreneur?
Oh, absolutely. The entrepreneurship journey is like nothing else. First and foremost, I am not a culinary trained chef. I loved cooking. I learned to cook at home at an early age. It's my passion. It's that thing I can do. But there are also some other things that you need if you're going to make a business out of it. So in terms of food service, which is my industry specific skill, you want to know food service, food safety, right? You can maybe good to cook at home and you leave things out on the countertop, but you have to do it in a certain way or people can get sick. That's a lawsuit, and on and on and on. You can lose the very thing that you're trying to grow. So I needed to learn that, certainly recipe development, inventory controls, and those are more specific to the food industry. But certainly I am also not an MBA person, right? So you need the business part also. So financial statements, financial reporting, financial forecasting, QuickBooks, Microsoft Office, learning how to use PowerPoint. I know PowerPoint is not, it's an old thing now, but all the things that you need that has nothing to do with sort of your passion project, but are necessary to operate a business.
And you're extremely successful now, but I know there's a great MBA program at Rutgers School of Business, Camden, just in case you're looking to, level up those skills.
I'm always looking to level up, lifelong learners.
Great, great, great. So, a lot of people see you now, they see the success that you have, but it didn't always start off that way. So tell us, a little bit more about that journey, working at Bloomberg, working in corporate America, and the side hustle that you were doing while you were still working 40 plus hours a week. Bring us through that journey. And then what was the point in which you were like, okay, now I can pivot to become an entrepreneur 100% of my time?
Oh, sure. I can spend all day on that. It has been a long, winding and up and down journey. And I think that's sort of the challenge to entrepreneurship and the beauty of building something that you have a vision, you have a goal, a desire, an aim, but you're here. And how do you get from here to that sort of vision that you have in mind? So again, I came here at the age of 15. Fast forward from that, went off to college, studied communications. I was cooking, when I was in Jamaica doing dinner. and people loved my food. And so I did a lot of that even in college. And then, so I knew I was doing the right thing. Um, while I was at Bloomberg, I started my catering then. So I kept my full-time job as long as I could and did it as what you would call now a side hustle. I didn't think of it like that then. I was just, again, the research said, stay where you are, grow it to as high a level as you can, a sustainable level as you can. I ended up foregoing that process somewhat when I, had to get divorced, and my son Robert commuting from Mount Laurel, New Jersey to New York was a 12-hour day. I just couldn't see, leaving him with a sitter for such a long period of time. So I had to leave Bloomberg sooner than I would like. So that's my own specific sort of journey there. But again, just growing the company, did the catering for a number of years. And then I always I think one of the sort of genius thing that I did, if you will, is I always looked at my business as a pie. Any pie, apple pie, pizza pie, whatever pie you like, because a pie has many slices. And so the pie is food, but there are many different ways to get that product pie out into the marketplace. So not having my own space, not having a ton of money to just go and open a restaurant, I did the catering. But coming from a media background, and it was around that time that the Food Network was starting out. So the Food Network was the Food Network before they became the Food Network. And I met with them and realized that food television was on its way to being a thing. And so being a writer, knowing how to present myself, I pitched to NBC and was able to get on NBC locally in the Philadelphia market for a cooking demonstration. I then took that and parlayed that over to Fox, and then just used that as one more avenue on my food service pie. And so another thing that I did was started teaching classes. How do I get that information out into the marketplace? So still all food, but a different approach and a different way of getting that into the marketplace. And so I taught for Kitchen Capers in Mount Laurel, then parlayed that to Williams-Sonoma, which I did in 3 states, did it at the King of Prussia Mall, taught there for several years. Also in New York at the flagship store in Columbus Circle, and in Princeton and other locations at Cherry Hill Mall, here in New Jersey. So again, just using every avenue, every vehicle to get it into the marketplace, to build a name, to build a brand, to grow the business. And so that's where a lot of my focus was.
Excellent. So there's 2 things that I want to pick up on that you just said. And while I establish these, I want to remind the audience as well that we want this to be interactive. So you can also think about some of the questions that you may want to ask Janet as well. So one is capital, right? And the second one is the communications background that you have. So you were really well prepared to jump in front of a camera and do a lot of media because of your educational background in communications. What advice would you give aspiring entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs now who are trying to get that type of media attention, who may not have those connections and do not have that type of training?
Oh, sure. I would say just do it. I think sometimes we think things are this big thing and they're scary. I remember listening to Michelle Obama, and she almost didn't apply for Princeton. And something just said, go ahead, and you know the rest. So sometimes things can look like this big, scary thing, but just do it. My background is in communications. I wasn't this top-rated speaker. I mean, I was just willing to go. Whether I'm scared, I will go. I'm tenacious, and that's what makes me an entrepreneur at heart. So I don't have everything figured out, but I'm willing to step into the ring. I'm willing to go, nervous or not, I will go, I will try. And I think that's one of the things that has worked for me.
Excellent, excellent. And so the other point that you talked about was capital. And we know that is one of the biggest barriers for entrepreneurs,
Absolutely.
the access to capital. So can you tell us a little bit more about your story, about how you were able to get enough capital, and also provide some tips to entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs on how they can also go about getting enough capital?
Oh, sure. I would start out by saying, when you're talking about business or almost anything, if you wait until everything is in the right place, you'll never do it. So don't do that. In terms of capital, I started out with my own funds. Again, all the research is whatever you have, get family and friends involved. They'll be as passionate about it as you are. If you're serious about what you're doing, they see you're putting in the work, people will invest. And I did have some early assistance there. I've taken out loans, I've had grants. And especially in this environment, there's a lot of money changing hands right now. There are tons of opportunities out there. So I've done as much as I had access to loans, my own funds, family, friends. I left not too many stones unturned, I don't think.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And so you did mention loans, which is something that a lot of people are afraid of getting.
Mhm.
What type of advice that you can give entrepreneurs in terms of how to balance the percentage amount of debt that they take on for loans versus the family and friends versus credit cards versus, all
Sure.
those other pockets of monies that they can
I
get into?
think that is an individual thing. And when you're speaking of entrepreneurship, that has its own nuance, because what an entrepreneur
That's right.
is willing to risk, the average person is like, no, I want to keep my full-time job. I know what I get paid every month. Like it's a completely different mindset. So I think it comes down the line mostly on an individual thing. How much do you think you can take? And of course, there's also life happening, and
Right.
sometimes you think you can handle this and you really can't, when it all, becomes reality. So I think it's a matter of what you think you can handle. Also, I believe part of it is a family dynamic also. For example, if you're a couple and you're married, sometimes it's more of an ideal thing if one spouse is working, you have the stability of that income, and the other person who's more entrepreneurial can really pursue and sort of have a little bit of wiggle room to make some decisions there. So I think it depends on your own individual situation or circumstance.
So when we talked before in preparation for this, you talked about some specific organizations that you found was really beneficial to you, like the Small Business Development Center. Can you talk a little bit more about some of those organizations so that entrepreneurs can know about them and take some advice from you in terms of reaching out to them?
Well, sure, there's so many organizations out there. For me, I got involved early. I volunteered my time. I was part of the National Association of Women Business Owners, started out as a member, then a committee member, went up the ranks and became president of the organization, the South Jersey chapter. That was 7, 8, 9 years ago or so. I've always taken classes at SCORE. I'm always taking a seminar, a session, an all-day thing, or a series on how to do this or that. So SCORE is a really great organization.
What does that stand for?
Oh, I can't remember.
Okay, sorry.
I can't remember. I'm getting old.
Somebody Google SCORE.
Yeah, but it is. It's a really great organization,
Okay.
and they help small businesses. I mean, on everything. You can write your business plan. They help you to write your business plan, extensive business plan, 1-page business plan, 5-page business plan. You learn all the financials that you need to know how to do. Microsoft, marketing, branding. It's so extensive. There's also obviously the SBDC, and also other networking organizations, chambers, and different groups that you can join and get access to resources.
Okay, so I'm gonna stay on this topic a little bit more because I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they like the capital thing is really, really big for them. And it's like one of the biggest hurdles for them. So you mentioned grants also in your answer. So can you elaborate a little bit more on specific grants that particularly people in this industry may be they need to look out for?
Oh, sure. So with everything, in light of everything that is going on, and perhaps this answer is more specific to the pandemic, because the pandemic, as awful as it's been, as challenging as it's been, as dark a time as we've been in, like any other dark cloud, there really is a silver lining. There are so many opportunities out there. I'm sure we've seen the diversity piece. And so there are organizations that are focused on making capital available to minorities in a variety of streams. And so there's grant funding available. I think a great percentage of most major corporations have done something. They've partnered with other organizations to make funds available to minority women and men in business. And so I know, I think the National Urban League, they've been part of grants. Verizon has been part, have grants, Comcast Rise. They've issued grants, and there are tons of them. Again, if you connect with the SBDC, SCORE, the Enterprise Center out of Philadelphia, you get their newsletter. They have a bevy of different funding opportunities that are free, that you don't have to repay, or loans at very nominal interest rate and things like that. So there are tons of opportunities in this environment.
Excellent, excellent. And so you brought up COVID, and we were going to get there, but since you brought up now, we'll go there. How has COVID, changed your operations?
Thank you. Again, let me just preface by saying it's been a difficult time for a lot of people. There are families that have lost numerous people in one family, friends that, I think each of us in some way, however far the tentacles stretch out, knows someone who's been affected by COVID in that way. And, my heart goes out to everyone who has suffered. That being said, there have been a lot of opportunities that has been brought about as a result of the pandemic. For example, companies that used to make alcohol, now they were making hand sanitizers. That's an opportunity, and you couldn't produce it fast enough. If you were making dresses or fabrics or whatever, now you're making cloth masks. You couldn't produce those enough. So there are always opportunities. So in my case, again, I've had this long relationship with RWJ, Robert Wood Johnson Hospital. I met the director of marketing many years ago, about 5 years ago, when I spoke at the New Jersey Conference for Women. I was a breakout session speaker. And what they did is all their corporate sponsors, they had them choose which session presenter they wanted to introduce. And after reading my bio, she chose me. And so that's how a relationship began. And since that time, I've done a number of events. RWJ. I've done demonstration classes at the conference center, which, by the way, they do in conjunction with Rutgers in Hamilton. They have other, I think, buildings as well that they work with Rutgers. I helped plan the girls' conference at the Hamilton location where I am now at some point along the way. And I think right before COVID, we did a sold out Kids in the Kitchen with Santa class. So I've always had this wonderful relationship that's developed over time, and we did a number of other things as well. And so last year, right before, in the midst of the pandemic, actually Rosh Hashanah, I did a dinner party for the president of the Hamilton Hospital, RWJ University Hospital, Hamilton. And it was at that dinner party that I found out, that the cafe that I'd been to so many times, the existing operator wasn't coming back. And I mean, I've been in that cafe many times, went in and grabbed a muffin, coffee again. I love coffee, and thought nothing of it. And so that was September 19, 2020. And I think by October 22nd, long story short, I was signing the lease because of that relationship and all the things that I have done leading up to that. And so again, tough times, crazy times, just mind-blowing, but there are opportunities there.
Excellent. So I just want to pause right now just to gauge the audience to see if there are any questions you may have right now that you want to interject to ask Ms. Davis, Chef Janet.
Don't be shy.
All right. Carla will come with a microphone for you. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, Miss Davis. My name is Ariana, and I'm a junior here at Rutgers University in Camden. How were you able to get in the room to pitch to a network about getting on TV? Like, how did she even get in that room?
Oh, thank you for that question, Ariane, and welcome. I actually didn't get in a room. I just did the research online and see who the news director is or who's the booker, the television booker. You have to go through a booker or producer to be able to get onto a newscast, if you will. And so I just did that research, and being a writer and presenting well. And I had done my own little small videos and things like that and just submit my information. And I think part of that too was, and we hear it today as well, what's your story? What's different about you? Why should I take a minute to look at what you're sending? And so just the writing and pitching, and it was different at the time. Again, not as many shows and food as big as it is now. It was different. It was unique. Here's someone that's from Jamaica, didn't go to culinary school. Oh, you look great on camera. You know how to sell. There's something about you when I watch you on, yeah, let's give you a segment. And so once I was able to secure that first opportunity, I took that, got up enough courage, if you will, to approach the next station, and it built, and I built it that way, and it grew. And so I kept just writing and more material to submit to the next.
Great question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Others?
Hi, Ms. Davis. My name is Alana Arthur, and I'm also a Rutgers Camden business student. So just touching on your West Indian heritage, my family's from Trinidad, so I understand like the food, that we're passionate about our food. So how did you realize that in New Jersey or wherever you started your business, that there was a need for more West Indian food?
Thank you for that question. My approach to my food, and just knowing myself as I do, and sort of trying to buck some of the stereotypes. Like, I'm Jamaican, but my brand is flavor. And my feeling was, at the end of the day, people just want good food.
Mhm.
And so where product comes in is finding the need. A business can't exist if there's no one, if you're not selling something someone wants to buy. So for me, the need was, people have to eat, right? They may not know how to cook, or they may be able to cook, but they don't have the time to cook, and they have the money to spend. So that's where I come in. And so I also knew that for lack of a better term, I'm not a one-trick pony. So I don't just offer Jamaican food. There's that part, but my brand is flavor, just good food. And all the things that I've done so far speaks to that. I mean, I've done perhaps over 100 parties in the Hamptons, in the financial district. I've worked with Hugo Boss. I taught classes at Bloomingdale's right up until the beginning of the pandemic, Williams-Sonoma. And when I step back and look at all the things that I had done, all these high-end brands. So if I had listened to someone else that says, oh, Jamaican, certainly they don't want this over here, nonsense. You know what I mean? So you have to sort of take off those limits, if you will, and notice the gap in the marketplace. People just want, good food, good time, good fun. And the way I've always looked at it is, if you think back to being home, most of your best memories are had in the kitchen around food. Sometimes the food doesn't even get to the dining table because everyone is congregating in the kitchen and you're eating, and that's some of your most memorable moments. And that's where my business come in.
Excellent. Natalie?
Hi, Janet. I'm Natalie Cox, as you know. I had a question. You've talked a lot about, you've obviously achieved a measure of success. You've done some great things. Your tenacity has really opened a lot of doors for you, but I want you to touch on a little bit on the failure piece. So what are some of the challenges that you've experienced along the way? What have you tried and maybe it didn't go so well? And I don't want to use the word failure because I trust that it served as a stepping stone to the next opportunity. But what are some of those hardships that you've encountered that have helped you to develop and get to where you are now?
That is a great question, and thank you for that question. And I'll start by addressing the part of the failure piece. I think it's perspective. There was a time when I thought that this was a failure or that was a failure. When I left Bloomberg, again, I left a really nice paycheck. We're talking about the mayor of New York, his company, excellent benefits and perks. So that was difficult. So I was forced to cut down a lot of things, do without a lot of things, and then use that money to fund my restaurant. And so I opened a restaurant maybe within 2 years after leaving Bloomberg. I had a restaurant in Medford, and I was only open for about less than a year and a half. And at the time, I viewed it as a failure. Looking back, I realized it was preparation. So what people refer to as failure is practice. You have an idea of this thing that you want. Well, when you come out of the womb, so to speak, you yourself don't have all the things that you need to run a business. So you have to practice. You have to do this and learn that, and you stick that knowledge in your pocket. You go here, you learn this, another knowledge pocket. And so what seemed like failure at the time, I needed to know how to operate a restaurant, every aspect of operating a restaurant. I closed that restaurant, but I got what I needed to go and do what I'm doing now. It also forced me, once I closed that, to see what was next. And that's how I ended up in the Hamptons. I sort of took my act on the road. And so being around a certain kind of clientele, doing certain high-end events, all that I'm using now at RWJ. There is a conference center there. When I say fitness and wellness center, Oscar's been there, Natalie's been there. It's an expansive space with 8+ conference rooms, rooms up to 240 people. The cafe, as the food operator there, is responsible for all the food for those events. And so you couldn't take someone that just operate a small mom and pop shop and put them in there. They may do the cafe piece, but how do they do the conference piece? And so when I look back, all those pieces of everything that I have done was preparation for what the pandemic really opened up to me.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm gonna chime in with another question, but I will also give the audience some time as well. Was that a 5-minute warning, Carla? Okay, great. Well, Natalie asked one of my questions because I was going to ask you about, is there anything that you want to do over? So that was similar to the question I had. Well, if you follow the business media right now, you have certainly heard about, the great resignation and labor shortage. Can you talk about some of those specific challenges that you are having right now, and how are you motivating your staff to just give people excellence each time they serve?
For sure, my staff or what's left of it.
Okay, yeah.
Sure, I think the two big pieces to your question is the supply concerns, which week by week, I can tell you, and I'm sure you can see when you go to the market, is a growing concern, and also the labor piece. I think in terms of the labor, there are people that have sort of just quit on life. Carl and I were talking about that. It's been a challenging time. I think maybe some of us don't realize how tough it is if you haven't been directly affected by COVID in that way. It's been challenging. Like I said, some people have lost multiple family members. And so you have the piece of they've quit the job, they've changed jobs, they've changed industries. But I think there's a piece that people have quit on life too. So you're down to a very small pool of people, small pool of workers. So that is definitely challenging. And then you have the supply piece. I can tell you, each time I shop, it's one price this week. It's a completely different price the next, and that's every week. Or you find something this week and some normal everyday product, food product, is not available the following week. So it's very challenging in terms of motivating my staff. I am sort of naturally motivated. That's the only way you can really be an entrepreneur, right? You have to be fully, completely invested. There's no other way. And so, of course, you take your lumps, you take your licks, you cry a tear here or there, and you keep moving forward. That's what you know. You're naturally wired to do that. You may have some downtime, but you don't stay down. You get to the next thing. In terms of staff, I think people follow people that have a vision. And when you can tell that the vision is true, it's real, and you can hold the vision, people will follow you. And so that's how I motivate myself. That's how I motivate my team, the folks that I have left to show up.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So I imagine I have, what, 3 minutes left, Carla, now? I want to ask if we can end on this one. And so Dean Nadia and I was actually at an event a couple of weeks ago about the time that we're in now. So it's really even hard to visualize, right? But if you have this moment to visualize what's next for Jade Jamaican Grill, if you've had that luxury to think about the next phase just yet.
Oh, sure. I'm always 5-10 years down the road.
Okay.
I've always like that's how I function. I've always told people that, Jade is not just a one, stop thing. I look at it as a brand and as a pie. And on that pie, again, there's the cafe now that I have. There's also private label products, which I've introduced one thing in store, or salad dressing, which I'm looking to get on store shelves in quick succession. There's also books that I have to write, books that I really should have written by now, recipe books, business books, and hopefully eventually my own show and different things. So it really is truly a pie. That's how I look at it. So those are some of the things that are in the works. That's always been on the table, and I just have to, follow through with that.
Excellent, excellent. We are certainly looking forward to everything that's in the works for you. I can't wait to get back to the cafe to enjoy the delicious
looking
food,
forward
and
to
I
have you
invite
back.
all of you there. If you have an opportunity to go to Hamilton to our cafe, delicious, delicious, delicious. Thank you so much for being here with us and sharing with us your journey in entrepreneurship. You're very inspiring, and I'm sure many of us have learned so many lessons from you. Special thank you for allowing us to educate your son, Robert, in the School of Business here. And when I went there, Robert was also working there, so he's putting in practice the skills he's learning here at the School of Business to make your business even more successful. So please join me in thanking Chef Janet Davis.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I'm going to turn it back over to Alexis and Carla.
Okay. Are there any last minute questions for Chef Janet? If not, help me thank her once again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Janet, it's been a pleasure. I don't know, has she inspired you to go out and start your own business? You definitely have, absolutely. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Alexis and I would like to present just a token of our appreciation and thanks of you being here and sharing your time and talent with us today. So thank you. I also want to thank the Rutgers Women of Business Alliance and their advisors for supporting and co-sponsoring today's event with us and Mondays as well. And I also want to share with you a new venture, new opportunity that we're going to be launching on November 1st with the Small Business Development Center. It will be a small business think tank for student entrepreneurs. So if you or you know of other students who have small businesses, the side hustles, or just thinking long-term that they want to have a business venture, this is going to be the time and place. It's going to be a monthly series with bringing in consultant speakers and speakers from the SBDC to help students start getting those, business plans, looking for where to get venture capital and things like that. So it's going to be student driven, but we will have myself and the SBDC there, as well as many other consultants coming out. So please share the word. And thank you all for coming and joining us today. And hopefully you'll join us this afternoon at 4:30 for an interactive workshop with Orly Ziwi, our author of Ready to Launch Brand. Thank you all.
Thank you. So Chef Janet will be here for probably another 15-20 minutes. If you have any questions, you may want to come up and ask her. And can we take a a few pictures up here, if you
Oh,
don't mind?
absolutely.
Okay.